And it was something I was a part of since almost right when I moved from Kansas City to LA. Like, it was right on the heels of moving here.
It's when she was falling in love with one Shane Johnson.
That's true.
Yeah, and me
That's
too.
true.
I saw that show probably 50 times, and she was incredible in it. It is an incredible show.
Fun fact,
how did you guys meet? How did you guys meet?
Oh, how did we meet, Shane?
Well, the children are nearby, so I don't know that I can tell that story. I was a male prostitute.
He was, and he still is. No, we were in our acting class together, and we had it every Tuesday and Thursday night. And I think on Tuesday night, we were sitting in the same row, and he was like, "Hey, what's your name?" And I was like, "Keili." And he was like, "Oh, like Keili and Do," which for most people, maybe you don't know, it's a play. But I knew it because I had heard it a million times. And I was like, yeah.
No, you haven't.
Yeah. Yes, I was. No, I was like, yeah, like Keili and Do. And he's like, "I'm Shane." And I was like, "Oh, I'll remember that. There was 2 other Shanes in the class." And so on Thursday, we were walking toward each other at the very beginning of class. He's like, "Hey, Keili." And I was like, could not remember his name for the life of me. Couldn't remember his name.
She still has trouble with
I don't know who you are.
We've been together. We've been married like 16 years, and we've been together almost 23 years.
That's incredible, man. It's mind-boggling, and especially in this day and age in our industry. And that's why I said, you guys don't have a marriage, you don't have a relationship, you have an empireship. That's to me is the goal, is when you're able, because as Shane said, like you can be on this ride, but being on the ride sometimes by yourself can be depressing. And you want to be able to have that escape, but to be able to do it in the continuity that you guys have done, the foundation that you've done, the trust that you've done, the level of support for each other, you just don't see that anymore. Like, you just do not see that in this business, because it's become a dog-eat-dog world of like, what's mine is mine, and what's yours is still mine. So. You obviously, as I said, working, you said in theater, Shane both working as well in theater. What for you would you find the differences working in theater compared to film?
Oh, so different.
In what way? What's your experience like,
Shane,
for you?
Are you going?
Oh, well, first of all, I haven't done theater in a very long time. I mean, that's where I cut my teeth. I was doing a bunch of I probably did like 35, 40 plays, coming up. and there's a certain amount of, you get trying to lock in, making sure you know your lines, and your blocking, and when you have an audience, the show must go on, right? So there's all that pressure, and then there's also like trying to be present and trying to have an experience on stage every night, especially when you're doing it for like Keili, she did there for an entire year or longer. And so every night, like, how do you keep it fresh? Whereas on camera, it's like people are learning their lines sometimes right as, while they're filming, and then trying to be organic and find stuff. I don't, Keili and I don't operate that way. Like, we try to work on it and have plans and have a character and know what we're doing before we show up. But it's certainly much more short-lived, and it's hotter in some ways, because it's like it's momentary and then it's gone. Whereas with theater, it's ongoing. And like Keili's been in a couple of huge movies that were so I wouldn't argue that what she said that Bear did a ton for her, the show did a ton for her, but Malibu's Most Wanted obviously has become a cult classic, and Pain and Gain was an awesome movie, and she did an incredible job in it. And I feel like she's got a bunch of her fan base comes from that as well. And she gets a lot of very interesting dick pics and things like that in her DMs.
I do, and I love them, all of them. I'm keeping a book.
Yeah,
nice.
It's because
I don't know.
That's what, by the way, that's what women love. That women,
we do.
Yeah,
no, you don't. No, you don't. You really don't. You
oh, no.
Because I've always wondered the thing of like, when for me, like, when these guys decide to send this shit? Like, I'm like, what do you expect the response to be? Like, when she opens it up, like, hey, that's a nice package. Meet me on Wednesday. Like, what goes through someone's head? I couldn't even imagine myself like sitting there, whipping up my shit, snap, upload, send, tag.
Girls do this shit all the time. It's only fair that we get it in return. I'm just glad I don't see faces because I don't want to imagine their face. I just want to focus on what I'm seeing. That's it. That's all I need. I don't want to connect to a nice disconnect.
Yeah, Keili's. Yeah, that's her thing. That's how we met. We met. We actually met at a glory hole. At a glory hole. Yeah. That was the introduction.
Also.
Let me ask you both. I mean, you guys have been doing this for a long time as well. Like, do you guys still get nervous in front of a camera?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it can happen. It can definitely happen. Yeah, you kind of want to get one out of the chamber a little bit, you know, and that helps. And theater too. Theater. I mean, in terms of the last conversation we were just having, theater is you got one shot. That's it. You know, you go up on your lines, like no one's resetting for you. Like you got to figure your shit out, particularly in a musical, because unless you're just going to start like happy birthday to, and then the chicken, and you know, you can't make that up. It's like what it is, you know, to a rhythm. So that's it. You get one shot. But yeah, you can get nervous, but you know, ultimately, hopefully you've done enough reps in working on your material that now it's just like end action and it's just another rep, and then you get another rep, and then a different angle. But yeah, you can have nerves. I know that he gets nerves too.
Do you prefer the pressure? Do you prefer the pressure of like the theater more than, you know, the slow aspect of prime time?
No preference. Different beast.
Yeah.
Which one do you find more challenging?
I mean, theater is more challenging.
Way more challenging. Like to me, that you have to be on. But I believe that pressure, the way I look at it, I said this to Shane before, is that like whether you know, because we're all looking for that. I think as actors, you guys have obviously seen the movie Legends of the Fall with Brad Pitt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think we've all, when we get into the business, want that moment that Brad had at the end of that movie where you're like, the first time you saw it, you're like, this guy's going to be a star. Like you knew in that moment that this guy was going to be something special. And I believe that like when you're going for any job, or even necessarily, and this I was talking with Shane, like with sometimes you get a bad script, you get a really, you know, crappy script. It's up to you, I believe, as an actor to find a way to make the script work, even if it's shit, because I look at that potential person that's watching you for the first time. It's almost like an audition for another role that you haven't gotten. Like you could play it and be really crappy and just say, okay, you know what?
That is your audition for your next or down the road piece. That's correct. It's always up to you. And yes, I heard you guys discussing like, you know, actor versus meh script. And I do agree. But that being said, you know, you can still have someone make some good choices. I think some stuff can be forgivable if somebody makes some interesting choices.
So what's your, like, I mean, for both of you, like what's your approach when it comes to taking a certain role? Are you more interested in the script? Are you more interested in who's in the movie per se with you, who you're working with, or who's directing it?
Script, director, who's in it for me, I would say.
Yeah, I would say that too. And also the part, right? Like your particular part in it. And because sometimes, you know, you'll be like, oh, this is really great, but this isn't my casting, or I'm not into that particular role. But you know, I would agree. I think it's the script first and foremost is the thing that's going to be exciting, you know, because we've all had those auditions for things that you're like, well, it's actually a pretty interesting role, but the script is awful.
Yes. But I'll tell you, the very first job that I had when I moved out to LA was I worked for a friend's mom, who was a fantastic casting director, who has Phyllis Huffman, who has since passed, but she cast all of Clint Eastwood's pieces. And so I got to work with Clint, which was amazing. And he is fantastic as a human being, but he was just great. But Clint gives you one take and then you move on. And that's it. Unless a light or a boom is just going to go across, that's all the fuck he's given you. That is it. So I think it's really important to find out who the director is. When I booked Pain and Gain and I knew it was Michael Bay, it told me a little bit about what we were going to do with this piece. You know, I knew how he shot things. I knew what kind of action he wanted, but this was a piece that he had wanted to do for like 20 years, but he had all these deals with Paramount before that. So they wanted just action, action, action. And he wanted something that was a little more story driven. It was a very different piece for him. But it's, you know, you learn a lot from who's attached to a piece, but script is obviously, you know, the very biggest clue that you're going to get.
What about you, Shane?
Yeah, I would say that. I would 100% say that it's the script. And sometimes something is just so incredibly written that you're just like, oh my God, I have to be in this movie. Now, granted, you might not get cast in it, but just as an actor, that's where your heart goes as you go, this script is unbelievable. And,
right.
And just to be, you know, a part of something like that sometimes is worthwhile. You know, but you also just never know. I mean, you never know. Sometimes movies, I mean, like look at just as an example of Good Will Hunting that everybody passed on and no one wanted to make. And finally, what was it? Gus Van Sant finally at a party was like, all right, fine, I'll do your movie, whatever that story is. And then he ends up winning an Academy Award for, you know, they win an Academy Award for the best screenplay and they couldn't get the movie made, you know? And that's just like one example, but there are so many stories that are like that. So the other thing I would say is if you're a creative, if you've got a script, if you're a talent, believing in yourself and believing in this story that you have to tell is valid. I mean, it's one of the things that, you know, Keili and I are doing now is going, what can we get off the ground and produce ourselves and act in ourselves and wrangle people together for and use our relationships to make happen because, and it's scary because you're putting your ass on the line. You're vouching you're vouching for the material. You're demanding the money, the budget, and then you're also roping your friends and loved ones into this thing, and you're putting your ass on the line. But
and that's the truth, and that the whole, I think the whole key to that is having like all the right motherfuckers around you, you know. And I'm looking on here and I'm seeing Steve's on there, Maya's on there, and Johnny Crown's on there, and Babs on there, and I see you, Gabe. You know, all these people, and we, you know, in our studio, Richard tells us to just not wait. Don't wait for the phone to ring. You just create your own shit. Like, I mean, you know, whatever it is that you're after, you create the evidence and then you present it to the world. And maybe it's not the first person who answers, the second person or whatever, but we've all, I mean, like Johnny Crown's got like a comic book series, you know. I'm sure he thought, I'm coming out here to do, you know, he's a musician as well and an actor, and he's great at all those things, but like you create your own shit, you know. And then you have to have that force. But we all in our group of friends, we all, you know, we support each other and say like, how's that thing going? Like, come on, how can I help you? Like, we've had more people hold booms for each other and like shoot shit and help edit or find the right song. And that's